Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everything in between. I'm Zen, and this, if I'm correct, is video 8 of the form series. The one that you've been waiting for. The one when we actually make a half decent form. That's right, this one in front of us is the form we are going to be making. Okay, we might do it over 2 videos, not quite sure yet. We'll see how long it takes. But believe it or not, it does come from form number 3, Reg 3, that we made some time ago. We're going to take this and convert it into this. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I know I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. It's really important to understand that forms are very hard to make beautiful. I think this one looks nice enough. It's not the world's greatest, but it will do. And secondly, your forms have to match the rest of the site. Okay, this is a demonstration form. Okay, it's not attached to any website. It hasn't been made for a website in mind, although if I'm being honest, I perhaps would use something similar to this in maybe a photography style website or something, but the truth is this is just been a made up form to show you how to put it all together and have it look nice. But I'm not lying to you, it does come from this form. Okay, one of the ways that we can make forms look a bit nicer is to get away from this idea of just using a border or having no border at all. And you know, here we've used a drop shadow around it all, but also incorporated an image next to it. And to some degree, it looks a bit like a postcard. Okay, you know, we've seen those cards where there's pictures or a business card on the left-hand side or the right-hand side and an image next to it. And this is all it is. It is a section with a drop shadow, with an image to its left, the form to its right, and another version of radio buttons which I came up specifically for this demo. We've got the normal checkbox down there still, and we've got a drop down title system, and then we've got some placeholder texts in these. And if you think these lines look familiar, they should be, because they were done in 2 videos away. Okay, that's where we came across them the first time. It's just a underlined border. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is to find our original form, which is this one, Register 3. We're going to rename it like we've always done so that we've got a history of our work. Here we have it, Reg 3. Now Reg 4 was that really messed up one that we made in the last 2 videos. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to save this still, so save as, and we're going to call this regflowers.html, just so that we know which one we're talking about, because when we keep using just numbers, it's going to be very difficult to realize that this is a big difference. So as always, we're going to open this in live server so we know what we're doing. Let's get rid of that one there. So we've got regflowers and what we're moving into. So one of the first things we have to do is to work out the structure. And as I said before, what we've really got here is a container. Okay, now to me it looks like like I said, a postcard. So I might call this a postcard. And then it's split in half. Okay, it is a 50-50 split. So on this left hand side we've got the image, right hand side we have a form, and in that form we have this structure that we're going to work with. So let's go back to the code, and we need to start looking at the HTML structure first. So we've got the form. Well, we're no longer going to have the form as the parent tag here. So let's go into it a bit, and let's just do a section with a class of postcard. And then we're going to wrap, we're just going to cut that close in there and take it to the bottom of our form and paste it in. and then we're going to highlight our entire form and just tab it in. I'll just close that down there a bit. I'll zoom back in for you. So we now have the postcard, we have the form, but before the form we said we're going to have an image. Now there are actually two ways we can do this, and I'm going to be honest with you, I cheated a bit. What I should have done is exactly what I said, was to create a new container, or even just get this image to the correct dimensions, crop it, save it and use it. Okay, and then I could have a solid image here and then a form next to it, and it would work perfectly. But the problem I've got here is that I want you to be able to follow along with me, and I didn't take this image, and I always want to give as often as I can the credit to the people who did create the image. Okay, so the actual image URL that you can get from, it's from the Unsplash website, is in the description, and I shall put it in my code here as well. Okay, so I'm going to put in a HTML comment and flower image is here. Okay, and I'm just going to take this link itself and show it to you. And there it is. You can see it is hugely different from the one we actually use. Okay, you can see there I've got a tiny snippet of it. Okay, and the actual bit that I've got is, I think, this section here. What I did was download it, and I downloaded the original size, which is a huge image. Okay, it's a massive image. Downloaded it, and like I say, my original idea, and if I was doing this for you know, for an actual job, or you know, for my own site or something, I would indeed crop the part that I need and use it. But for this demonstration, all you need to do is to download the original size. Okay, and in fact I haven't done this yet in this one myself. You need to put the image inside the images folder. Now it did have a rather large name, but I just renamed it Sora Photography, and I do apologise, that's not how you say your name, and the hyphen to it. It's actually had a really long extension to it. And again, if I'm going to be honest, I'd normally call it, in fact I'll do that now, I'll rename it to Cherry hyphen Blossom, because that's what it is. Okay, I've not changed the dimensions. Like I say, you know, like we saw, the dimensions are huge, but that's why I get such a nice clear picture of that top section. Then what I do, or what I did, and what I'm about to do, is I set this image as the background to the postcard, but I offset its position. Okay, so what we're doing is having this as a background, and then I'm moving it all the way over to the left, and you know, more or less up to the top, because obviously I think it is all the way up to the top. And then I stop it from repeating in the background, so we don't get anything going on over here, and it's just contained in, and that is all I do. So we shall do that. Let's go back to the code. So we've got a class called postcard, excuse me. We go up to the top, we go after body, and that's dot postcard. What I'm going to do is give this postcard a width of 1200 pixels. And I'm going to give it a height of 750 pixels. And again, you know, I haven't just picked these out of the air. I did some work on this before, obviously we're doing this. In fact, I spent a good day messing about to try and get it so it was half decent for us. We're also going to, you know, do some more work on this, but let's first of all just put in the background image. So we use background image and URL, and then it is images / oh, it's not going to help me today, and then what do I call it? Cherry blossom, cherry-blossom.jpg. And if we save that, yeah, cherry blossom, that is correct, and then we view it. Right, it doesn't look like we've got anything, but we have. Okay, we can see it's gone a different color. So this is the 1200 pixel width that we've got. Okay, but all we're seeing is this area up here. So this grey, all this grey is actually the sky area over here. So what we need to do is to move it over a bit. When I say a bit, it's actually a heck of a lot. So we go back to the code and we're going to do background position X minus 4600 pixels. So that is dragging the image all the way over to the left hand side. As usual, I might as well do a left hand side comparison. Okay, so that's what we're getting, and I'm going to zoom this out at the moment so we can see it all. So that is at a 4600 move over. And although it looks like this is just more sky, this is actually the tiling effect of the image. So all we need to do is put in background repeat and no repeat. Save it again. And now we've got the first half of our image. What we probably want to do is move it over a bit into the page. Okay, the whole postcard thing. So to do that, like we would do with anything else, we're going to use, in this case, position relative, and we're going to give it a margin. Oops. Then we're going to give it a margin of 50 pixels from the top, just to drop it down a bit. Auto on right, 0 on bottom, auto on the left. Save that. Now that hasn't moved a huge amount, and part of that is because you can't see where this finishes at the moment. We can see this half, but our form is half over, so it should really be sitting over here. However, when we add the box shadow, which we might as well do now, we'll be able to see the positioning of everything a lot better. So let's do the box shadow. Now on this one, if you notice in the original one, and I'll just show you again, let's get rid of that now. The shadow is around the whole of the card, okay, and that means in this particular case we're not giving it an X or a Y offset. We're not shifting it off. Okay, we're allowing the shadow to appear all the way around it. But we are going to add a blur, 15 pixels, and a spread of 10 pixels. And then we'll also, or is it the other way around? I can never remember. And then we're going to give the color an RGBA of 120, 120, 120. So a pure grey, but with an alpha transparency of 0.8. And when we save that, now we can see the whole form, okay, the postcard, and we see that our form needs to be budged over to the right hand side. I say it is, I don't know if it is actually 100%, 50%, but it's good enough, and it still gives the effect that I want it to. So the next thing we need to do is to start playing about with this form as a whole to get it roughly in the right place. Now we already want it at a width of 600. We've already declared that before. We've 1200 wide. Hopefully this is going to be roughly 50-50. And so what we're going to do this time is, rather than using position relative, and we don't need the margins anymore, so we can get rid of the margins. We'll get rid of those. And we're going to float it to the right. Again, we save that. And we can see it is roughly right, correct. So it looks like my image here is just a bit more than 50%. I thought it was less, but it looks like it's slightly more. Do I need to change it? Probably not. I'll leave it as it is for the moment. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is get rid of the border, because as we saw from this one, we no longer have one because the border has been made up by its container, which is the postcard. So we can get rid of the border, and this has got a padding of 1 rem around everywhere. I think in this case now we only really need to get a little padding along the top to bring this down a bit. So let's change that to padding top, and 1 rem is around about 10 pixels. That should be fine. We can see just with those small little changes, it almost looks like we could use it like that, and we could. There's no reason why this wouldn't be a valid form. You know, we could obviously use the positioning from the postcard to move things around into a more appropriate place on our page, but essentially this would work, and it still looks a lot better just like that. So even though there's only a small change between this and how it was originally, which is this one here, would say that this looks a lot nicer, a lot more user friendly, and all we've really done is add an image. Okay, you know, there's not much changes, but it does make a big difference. However, to get it to where we want to, which is here, there's still quite a few changes that we need to make, and obviously we're going to work our way down the system here. And again, we do have some problems. We fixed this in 2 videos ago, but because we've gone back to Reg 3, not Reg 4, we're going to have to reorganize some of our code here. So let's maximize this window. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see the text better, and let's do some of the fixing. So here we have the code. So we've got body, postcard, reg. So we now know what should be after reg is the label. Okay, so we're going to move label up. Which is rather ironic since we're going to get rid of label soon, but that doesn't matter. We assume that we're going to keep everything first. And let's just, after our label, it is the select, the drop down menu. So we find that, which is down here, select, and we're going to pick that up, move it up to the top, put it underneath label. And then after that, there was a select check focus. There it is, text focus and select focus. So we'll take that as well and move that back up to the top. So it's going to go underneath here. We've still got that ugly border dash thing. And now would be a good time, if we're going to do this, again, is to separate these out. So I'm going to take that first one, copy it, jump above it. Okay, so it's now just the select focus, and so I can get rid of the select focus there. The reason why we're going to do that is that now it's the text boxes or the input boxes which we've called text. So we can move this up. So we're going to cut that text. We're going to move it up to the top, and here we go. So select focus, after select we have the text box, or the input boxes, and then the input box focus. Okay, and then we have all the radio buttons and checkbox. So with that, we're going to split these up as well. So radio and check. Okay, we're going to, this is the one rule that will keep the same across them all. Actually, we should start off, actually just potentially two rules. First thing is that this rule needs to be moved up, but I want to separate the radio and the check groups, because like I said, we may work with them differently later. So first thing is to copy out the check group, paste that there, and then we can delete that from that rule set. So we have radio group, and now radio group goes to the top, because remember, we follow the HTML. Radio group, then it's a radio itself. So radio group, and again, this is doubled up, so we're going to split them out. So copy that, and I'm going to put that there. And then we can delete the check out. So then we've got the radio, so it's radio group, then radio. Then it is the label, which in this case is the reg label radio. So that can be copied, or sorry, it can be cut. And then we can paste it here. So radio group, radio label. Let's just see if there's any more label rules that we may want to keep an eye on. Okay, enable radio label rules directly. So then we have the check itself, or in this case the fake radio. So again, let's split these up. So fake check, copy, paste it below, and then delete it from that rule. And then we can cut that and put it above the checkboxes. Okay, so fake radio. And then we got the fake radio after. So again, same as before. Let's take the check. Let's copy it. Paste it out. Let's delete the check from that rule. Let's cut that and move it above the checkboxes. And now we've got the after events of both the check and the check after. That's a fake check, so that can stay over there. But here on the radio, we've got a radio after and a check after. So once again, we copy, paste it below, we delete out the check rule, we cut that, and we put it in here. So let's just check this. So radio group, radio, radio label, fake radio after, fake radio after from check. Okay, and now we can do the same for the check buttons. So check group, and then the check, and then we have the what we should have here will be the label. So we need to put in the label. Okay, now the reason why I don't think we have label for that is because, again, I was lazy, always bites you in the backside, is that I used the same class on the label for the check as I did for this. So I'm actually going to create this rule because I feel like we should have it separate just in case. So I'm going to copy the radio rule. Okay, let's go back to here. I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to call that check. Okay, reg label check. So then we've got the reg label for the check, we've got the fake check itself, the fake checked after, and then the checked after. Okay, and finally we have the submit button. Now what I'm going to do because I've done that here, where is it? Here, the reg label check. I'm now going to rename it. Okay, so now, even though it's this identical structure as Radio Group, they've all got their own naming conventions. Okay, and again, we're just putting some comments so that we can find our CSS okay. So body, postcard, reg, label. Select, drop down, input fields, radio sets. Checkbox sets. Finally, submit button. Okay, now we've done these changes, it's always a good idea to check that we haven't broken anything. So we're going to save it and we're going to have a look. Reg flowers, and it still looks exactly as it did before, which is exactly what we hoped it would do. So we are already peaking at close to half an hour and we haven't really done much, but we're going to make a few changes here to make it semi worthwhile. So one of the first things we want to do is to change this select button. Okay, so it's going to change from looking like this to looking like this. Okay, now first thing we know is that there is no label, so that is a HTML difference, and also it starts off with the title here as well. So there's a few changes we need to make. So now we scroll down to the HTML, and the first thing we're going to do is delete the label. Second thing we're going to do is to add an option in. We're going to set the value to -1 because it's not an acceptable value to us. We can check to see if it's -1, and therefore we know not to allow them to proceed with the form with that setting. And then here we're just going to put in the word title. Now when we save that, I thought we'd done everything then. View the form. Well, we're getting somewhere. Okay, we've got the title there. Oh, we've got horrible. What's it? We'll sort that out in a moment. But we've got the title in the text. So we can see we're going to have some work to do here with the select. So we've already got a width and a height we're quite happy with. Font size, most of this stuff we're actually already happy with. One of the first changes we're going to do is mess about with the border. So we're going to go for border, and we're going to set it off initially as none. Okay, and again, let's can we fit the two next to each other? Yep. So border set to none. That's working nicely. Okay, but we like the underline like all the other ones will have. So we're going to add in a border bottom. And we're going to set that at a 3 pixel solid. And then an RGBA of 120, 120, 120.8. Save that, and we see we get that coming in nicely. We also want to change the color so it's more in line with the rest of the site, or the rest of the page will be. So we're going to set the color to be the same. Okay, so color again will be RGBA 120, 120, 120.8. And there we have it. Now it's not in the middle of the page yet, and we've got to deal with that like a little drop down bit. So first of all, let's get rid of that aqua, and so we're not going to have a border when it does the drop down, and we're going to set the outline again to transparent. Save that, and there we have it. Okay, very nice and simple, fits in perfectly. What we do want to do now is to try and center it, but having it absolute center may not look nice properly, so we're going to play about with the margins here. So we already know we want a margin bottom of 1 rem. Actually we're going to want it larger, okay, but remember it goes top, right, bottom, left. So the top margin we want set at 2 rem. The right hand margin we're going to set to 0. The bottom margin we're going to also set to 2 rem, and then the left hand margin we're going to set to 11 rem. When we save that, there we go, and that is probably spot on. There you go, more or less it's that spot. And again, you know, I'm not a genius, well obviously I am, but these numbers I'm reading now, I'm reading out from another screen because I spent ages messing about with these values. Okay, you know, I love to tell you I am a complete expert and I know everything, but I don't, and therefore I've been practicing on these bit by bit. You know, I spent some time yesterday creating this form and working out the values so that I can do this fairly quickly with you. And I say quickly when I'm already something like over half an hour into this video, and all we've managed to do is the background image, form, and the title. So we're definitely going to be doing this over a few videos. But before we go off to the others, I think we should be able to get these others done fairly quickly. You see, when we look at it, it's actually the same thing repeated. Okay, the border at the bottom only, and then we've used placeholder text as opposed to using labels. Okay, and this is why having the, you know, setting the labels out in order, which you spent some time doing. Where did it go? It would be reg label. When we're not going to have any, is, you know, well, that's how life goes. We're going to leave that rule there because it doesn't hurt it being there, and we may end up using it a bit later on. That's just a hint for a future video or two down the road. So we'll leave that there, but we now know our next stop is to do these form fields, and so we need to get rid of the labels, put them into the placeholders. So let's do that. So again, this is a HTML part that we're working on. So again, inside here, so it's just before that closing one, we can go placeholder and then first name. Now another thing I'm going to show you here is not just deleting that, but a lot of people quite like the idea of putting your attributes on different lines, and in HTML you can do that, and it does make it feel a little bit more object orientated, because this makes it look like the attributes of an object. And you can't do this in every programming language, and I need to make that very clear, especially something like Python. Python will kill you literally for doing this, because spacing and indentation really matters in Python. You'll break your code if that is not correct. Same with certain areas in JavaScript, you know, white space can matter, but in HTML it doesn't give a monkeys, and therefore we can put the code in like this, and in my mind it does make it easier. In fact, we can do that up here with the select as well. Okay, and you can sort of see how the, you know, the structure is more, and it also, I think, can make it easier for us to see if we've missed something out, especially if we get into a habit of putting things in order. Type, name, ID, class, placeholder. Later on we'll be adding the code for the validation, and therefore we can check things very easy, and it means that, you know, we're not worried about text going off the side and word wrapping. So we're just going to do this for the others as we are doing them. So type, name, class, ID. Now see, these are in a different order, and it actually doesn't matter what order you're in, but if you're going to be doing this, I do recommend you put them in the same order, otherwise there's not much point in doing it. Okay, and then we said placeholder, and that is last name. Okay, and then we'll just drop you two to the next line. There we go, and then we can get rid of that label there, and then we can drop down and do the same for this one. So input, drop this over, name, ID, class, placeholder, username, close in bracket, new line. Now we can delete the label. Next one is email, so type email, name, ID, class, placeholder, email. Get rid of label. Type, name, ID, class, placeholder, password. Get rid of label. Next one, type, name, ID, class, placeholder, confirm, password. Okay, and we'll stop there because obviously that's the end of the normal input fields. Okay, so we've done that, and now when we save that and view it, not much is going to happen so far. Okay, obviously the labels have gone and they've gone into the placeholders have gone in. However, we've now obviously got to change the borders and move them over a bit. And so this rule will also be done. Let's just move this back over with the, as we get there, with the normal text. Okay, So it's a normal input box, it's the input fields. So height, well, we've got it at 2.2 rem, okay. Font size, all fine. So first thing we want to do is, again, we can sort out the border. So first thing here is border none. Okay, then we insert the new border at the bottom. So border bottom, and again it's going to be a 3 pixel solid RGB A 120 120 120.8. Save that. There we have our underline, and we've already got a padding left of 1 rem. That's fine. And what we're going to do here is we're going to have because we've already got margin being applied from the top of the title, because that had a top and a bottom margin. We don't need to have another top margin, because this margin, this element will be affected by the margin above it, and therefore with these you only need to do a margin left of 9 rem to center them a bit better, and then a margin bottom of 2 rem to space them out nicely. And there we have it. Now when we compare the two, okay, there are small differences, but nothing that's really worth writing home about. These do seem to be a bit higher. I think what I'll do is reduce the height of these to 2 rem. Okay, and although that's only a small difference per element, combined it saves us a bit of space down the bottom. Okay, so now we've got the main parts. Whoops, oh look at that. That's what we forgot about, these annoying focus points. Okay, so again we can just get rid of that, text focus none, and then we'll do outline transparent again. Save that, and there we go. And as we type in, obviously the placeholder text disappears. Okay, so that's the end of this video. In the next video, we're obviously going to be taking this form one step further, where we're going to be changing once again the radio buttons and checkbox into these sort of buttons. And in fact the checkbox is a very small change, so the main difference here is obviously going to be how we do our radio buttons. So as always, I hope this has been useful. As I always ask, and I know I'm talking to myself mainly, but please like, subscribe and comment. Tell me what's good, tell me what's bad, tell me what you'd like me to change. I can't change my life or my voice, but you know, I'll see what I can do to change these videos. I'll see you next time, and this is Zen signing out.